I'm here to tell you the scariest story that's ever happened in my life. One of the most traumatizing events ever. So I was staying in some random town, someplace far away from home, because as I've said in previous videos, I was homeless as soon as I turned 18, so I couldn't live with my parents. And so I was living with a random relative very far away, and they had kicked me out. And so I was staying with a random person. One of my best friends, they were calling me on the phone a bunch of times. And the random person who I was staying with, their mother took that as an excuse to kick me out. So I guess my friend felt guilty. And so when I got kicked out, I went to live with him at his mom's house. And I'm not using any names in this for obvious reasons. They had a lot of dogs. We grew up together, actually, was the whole thing. And so we hung out at this house a lot before. They had a lot of dogs. I lived basically, right beside this person. And behind our houses was like a tributary. It was pretty obvious that this place where we lived used to be a forest before they mowed it down to make cool suburbs. But in the end, staying there after I got kicked out of the random people's house. And it was kind of like Zelda, if you've ever played the Ocarina of Time. The few years that passed turned out to be a lot of years. And this house had really gone to hell. There were some physical damages in the house. And he was letting me stay there. And his mother was kind of allowing me to stay there. But the thing was, his big brother and his little sister also stayed at this house. So it wasn't just like, yeah, it's all good. So things were scarce. Things were rough. The house was not in the best physical shape. And all this is to say, these people did their best. Not that I'm even saying anything about them, but they had a lot of animals. They had just a lot of responsibilities to deal with and different mental health problems. The big brother, he was like pretty much super violent and crazy to everyone. And he was addicted to drugs. He was pretty much like living with Joseph Stalin. He was actually the person, the first time I ever smoked weed, he was the person who convinced me to, So I was living with him, his little sister, his mom, and I was sleeping on the couch. This was my musical friend. We played music as we were growing up as teenagers, so we were always deep into music. We played different instruments. I met him in middle school, and I played clarinet at the time. We started playing guitar. By this time, we were adults and we were all into different shit. And he had a piano. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever bought a piano, but if you have, or if you haven't, or if you have even tried to buy a piano, pianos are very, very, very expensive. They're also quite heavy, and we weren't exactly children, but we weren't exactly piano adults. I was obviously homeless, and he was living with his mom. So the piano he had gotten, he had gotten from like a random person who was giving away stuff, and he went to get it in his pickup truck, and it was out of tune, and he tuned it himself. And I don't know what kind of technical training you have to tune pianos, but this guy didn't have it. So the piano was weird and creepy, out of tune, kind of spooky, very spooky. And as I said, we kind of lived in what used to be a forest, kind of tributary kind of thing. I even remember once when I was a kid, I found a rabbit. This was like my first interaction with actual death. I found this baby bunny, and I tried to feed it. And my parents, in case you were wondering, are black. They were black. Well, I didn't live with my actual parents, but the people I did live with at this time were black. And I did live with my mom, but she was not my parent anymore. And there will be a whole story about that for sure. But yeah, I found a bunny and I tried to keep it alive. I didn't know at the time that it needed some kind of milk. And even if I did, it wasn't like my black parents were gonna go like get me rabbit milk or rabbit formula. So they made me put the bunny down. This was a bunny we found just, in the neighborhood. Same with, I found a turtle once that had been like attacked by something and was mutilated. We had to put it down. So this was like a place where you could find a lot of weird and exotic animals. And like I said, this house was not in the best of shape. So they had a little problem with rats. And I don't mean mice. And anytime I mention an animal, it's absolutely the animal I mean. Because there's more weird animal stories to come. So anyway, they got rats, which was, cool because they had a lot of dogs. So like the rats didn't like come hang out because obviously they'd get mauled by the dogs. They mainly lived in the basement. But at night, the rats would come out to play.
We're losing men to rats.
And obviously, since I was like the 8th person standing there and the black person, and obviously the only person not related to anyone there, I got to sleep outside. Well, I didn't sleep outside, but I didn't have my own room. I got to sleep out in the living room, which was where everyone, I guess, they wanted to sleep with the dogs because, like, they didn't want the dogs to get bitten by the rats because they crated the dogs. They didn't just let the dogs, like, run free at night. And some of the dogs, you know how dog people are, they slept with some of the dogs, and the dogs that weren't as loved were crated. And so basically the dogs they didn't want to get bitten by rats, they slept with. Anyway, so me and the dogs they didn't care about getting bitten by rats got to sleep with the rats in the living room at night, which was very fun. I remember my first night trying to kind of adjust to the fact that, okay, rats is my life now. And I'm listening to them scary in the background as I'm like trying to sleep and like pretend it's all good. And they start running across the piano, playing the spooky, out of tune piano notes. And it was just like the most horrifying experience you could imagine. Well, somehow I'd even gotten used to this experience. I was living in this situation where, alright, I slept with rats, I lived with a crazy, super abusive guy, and my friend, who I loved to death, mogged me to the ground. That's just a fun word that I learned from the internet. LOLZ. And I had a crush on the sister, so that was like a gay situation. Because, well, let's not even talk about that. These are all mini stories. This is my first story that's a story. And so I lived with a crazy guy, and one night, and he was like a guy who didn't tolerate shit. Like if you did anything, like for example, like this guy, he kicked this guy's ass because he lit a match. And I was the guy whose ass got kicked because I lit a match. Because apparently he gets sick when he smells matches, and I was supposed to know that already. And if he's like subscribed to this channel, he knows I'm talking about him. I love you to death. I told them that you're great now. But he was big scary. And so I'm sleeping out with the dog and rats. And the rats are playing the piano. And then one of the rats decides to crawl up my pants leg. And yeah, I lost my shit. I screamed like a girl as loud as can be. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody woke up, turned the lights on. And of course, the big, mean, crazy, abusive guy, he was about to murder me for screaming super loud in the middle of the night. And I told him what happened. I was like, a rat just crawled in my pants. Like, literally, touched my genitals. Like I have leptospirosis sexually. I got an STD from rats. Not really. But, yeah. That was the most horrifying experience of my life. Stick around and I'll tell you about the day me and my friend ate roadkill. That'll be the next video if you liked this one. And subscribe if you want to get, and hit the bell if you want to get notified for my next blah 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 blah. I'm a YouTuber now, did you know that? I guess if you're watching to this point, you know I'm a YouTuber. And I'm serious. I'm Clark Kent. Actually, I'm the super, or, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what my other identity is anymore. Stay mindful.